Common Nerd goes on an unexpected rant.
But that's the problem with these activists, these DEI demonically possessed activists, is like they can't help but be proud of their debauchery, of their evil. They're proud of their evil. They're proud of it. They want to tell you about it. They want to tell you all about it. And so she couldn't help but keep her mouth shut. And yeah. Now look what it's turned into. Now what it's turned into. This I just thought was kind of interesting. Technically, this is an ad, but like since we were talking about all the throwback stuff, I thought this was kind of funny. When you're heading through your first trip to McDonald's, McDonald Land, get the meal shake plus one of 6 souvenir tins. So I'm guessing this is part of their like adult Happy Meal that my wife mentioned to me the other day. Crap, I just want to let the video play. I hate that they embed links. Yeah, see, they embed links into their videos now. But I just thought it was kind of neat because there's been such a big complaint. I'm like, at first when I saw this, I was like, oh, are they going to go back to are they going to revamp their stores and go back to the classic style? No, it's just a retro marketing gag. But still, you know. And it's so funny too. It's like this shows you how much the culture has stagnated versus advancing. Right? And given there was a bit of a nostalgia throwback for the 90s, for like some of the 70s styles, like bell bottoms came back in style for a little while and stuff like that. And maybe that's all this will last too. Maybe this will be like bell bottoms and it'll go back away too. But I think it's one of them situations where the culture has stagnated so much now because of all of this turn towards diversity, inclusion, and equity, all of this getting in bed with the devil nonsense. Like it really, it makes you realize that, hey, guess what? Retro is the only thing that sells right now. Why? Because that harkens back to a time when things were more pure and more innocent than what they are now. Back when brands were neutral. At least their front-facing aspect of it was neutral. You know, what they were doing behind the scenes can vary from company to company. But like, it's one of them situations where it's like, this really shows you what the cultural shift that is going on right now, that how much the culture is stagnated because the only thing it sells is retro. Retro, as GameStop's dying, what comes in to replace it? These retro game stores are all over the place now, and they're successful, they're making enough money to open up bigger stores and franchise and do all kinds of stuff like that. Like, I know it's hard to make a profit as an individual one, but they're obviously doing something right. And so it shows you how much the culture is really stagnant and we're the only thing that retro sells. And who knows, maybe this will be over in a year or 2 years and all the retro game stores will go out of business because things will change and turn around. But I think this is a trend this is a quote unquote fad that might be around for easily a decade. Just because the culture is so stagnated, man. There aren't any major new cultural trends. I mean, what was the last major cultural trend we had? What, fucking Taylor Swift convinced that all of these teenage girls that high-waisted jeans were attractive? Boy, that was a fucking mistake. You know what I mean? So it's like, there really hasn't been any, not that I can think of, and who knows, maybe it's because I don't hang out with the kids anymore. I don't know what other kind of things have been, but other than like viral TikTok trends and shit like that, which those things are over. Those are all flash in the pans. Outside of Crocs, I can't think of one major cultural significantly impact thing that has come out and stuck around in the last couple of decades. That hasn't been driven into the ground in the last few years. I don't know. Interesting random thoughts from Common Nerd. Interesting. When we have an editor in the future, maybe sometime next year, in the next couple of years, I don't know. It'll really be up to Common Nerd as to when I can relinquish control or not. But for stuff like that, yeah, definitely. I like the idea of like pulling random clips out like that and like just turning them into little things. I don't know. Ironcaster says Stanley Cups and Lababubu. I have no idea what that is. I know what Stanley Cups are. I don't know what Lababubu is. Did Stanley Cups try going woke too? Sounds good, Griffin. Drop them, buddy. Drop them. Did Stanley Cups try going woke too? I don't know. I saw a bunch of them at Academy last night, or Monday night when I was picking up my weight. But I just think that was kind of interesting. I just think that was kind of defund the BBC. Oh, this is great. It's trending. Not enough posts yet. We got our Noah Centineo is going to play John Rambo in the Rambo origin film set during Vietnam. So there you go. Oh, he was Atom Smasher on Black Adam. I like that kid. I like him. He was great as Atom Smasher in the Black Adam movie. I like that kid a lot. Well, I wish him well. Once again, showing you this just once again reaffirms what I was just saying. Retro is the only thing that sells. Retro is the only thing that sells in our current cultural climate because the culture is stagnated. And it's because of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Right? And so this is the only way they can really straighten things back out. It's the only way they can really figure out a way to put, like, they have to go back to what works to refamiliarize themselves because it's all been lost to them. You know, it's all been lost to them. People didn't pass this stuff down, and the people that tried to pass this kind of stuff down got told that they were boomers and bigots and, you know, and everything else. So this kind of storytelling died, and all of the creatives that could do it got fired. So now everybody's trying to scramble back to what used to work because what they're doing doesn't work. And this is all they've got left. So who knows? Maybe we'll have to go through a decade of reboots and sequels. Probably won't last a decade, but before they finally find their footing again. I don't know. And I mean find their footing. I don't just mean Hollywood. I mean the culture as a whole, right? Because we've got a lot of good independent studios out there right now making a lot of good things, but they're not major blockbusters yet. You know, but for a lot of it, it's going to be like this. They're having to go back and relearn the basics. So, shout out to Noah Centineo, though. He's a good actor. I like the kid. We'll see how it happens. So, I'm sure it won't be anything anywhere near as good as the originals. But, you know, I'm sure the first action movies weren't really good either. You know, I've said it for a while that we've been in a dark ages. Right? And I know the dark, the dark ages weren't so as dark, whatever. Okay, I don't care. Not the point. But that we've been going through a dark ages of media here for quite a while. I mean, I could argue a decade, possibly even two, if not longer, depending on what versions of the media and the culture you want to get into as far as when a lot of this political correctness is what we called it in the 90s. You know, we call it woke now, diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's the spirit of the age is what it is. It's narcissism, ego, pride. You know, when you have a culture that feeds all of those, and makes and convinces an entire generation or a few generations or just enough groups of those generations that they're the best thing since sliced bread and that no one else can even hold a candle to them, then they're going to come in. Then this is what you're going to get. You know, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get people that don't respect the masters. You're going to get people that don't respect their elders, that don't respect what came before them, that don't understand the giants whose shoulders they stand on when they deal with these IPs and they mess with this stuff. You know, that's why they don't respect it. That's why they don't do it their own way. You know, the guy inside, what is it? I can't ever remember his name now, but the devil on Kevin Feige's shoulder, the one who hates the comics, Alvarez or Ovetez or whatever his name is. That guy hates the comics. He hates comics. And yet he is the steward for a comic book brand. He's the steward for Marvel. You know, Kevin Feige's just the face. This guy's the one that kills 1-to-1 ratios or 1-to-1 representations of what the comic books did. He's the reason why you got Secret Wars in name only. He's what you will get is Secret Wars in name only. He's the reason why you got, you know, Civil War in name only. He's the reason why you got the Infinity Saga in name only. So it's one of them situations where this is why this goes all the way back to what we were talking about, what Griffin and I were talking about earlier, as far as good stewards. Good people need to be in charge of these things. And if you're a corporation or you're an executive in charge of these things, one of the lessons you need to have learned from the Dark Ages is to make sure you pick good stewards to be in charge of your franchises, right? Oh, there's nobody out there doing that. Everybody's stupid. That'll never happen. They'll just continue burning down our IPs. They'll just continue burning down our franchises. No, that's not the case. There are people that have learned their lesson. I always bring Transformers is the example that I know the best, because Transformers is an IP that a lot of people have tried to damage. Paramount's the most recent and glaring example of what they did with their Transformers television show and introducing a non-binary robot. So it's one of them situations where it's like, we know they've tried to damage that brand. People that the spirit of the age has tried to get their hooks into that brand, and they have failed, at least in some aspects, because they didn't get total control of Transformers. Like in a lot of cases, they've got total control of Star Wars and arguably Marvel, you know what I mean? And a few of these other brands, Lord of the Rings, in some aspects when it comes to Amazon, right? But the Transformers comics, the new launch out there, hired a fan to run the show. And if you read that very first issue of that new Transformers relaunch, reboot, whatever, continuation, whatever you want to call it, it's really kind of a reboot. But it's done in the best way possible, because you read that guy's essentially love letter to Transformers that he has in the end of that first issue. And any one of us that has ever had a true love, an emotional attachment to an IP, right? It either changed your life, or it majorly affected you, or it was there in a time that it helped comfort you, or it was just something you grew up on as a kid, and it's this perfect, beautiful, wonderful memory of your childhood. That even despite if you had a crappy childhood or an awesome childhood, there's those unique moments that make those things special to you. And for a lot of people out there, they're connected to an IP. And that's what he tells you in that letter is his emotional attachment, his childhood love for that IP. And if more corporations, if more executives who are the gatekeepers, are the stewards for these properties, learn that lesson and put those kind of people in charge, at least it'll give everything a fighting chance, right? For all of the hate, for all of the vitriol that James Gunn gets, some of it very much warranted. I will completely and totally agree. Some of it not. At the end of the day, you might not like a lot of the same comic book runs that James Gunn does. And you might think some of James's favorites are some of the worst runs out there, i.e. having Tom King, unless maybe the government, as part of one of their conditions of the merger between Warner Brothers and Discovery, was to allow their CIA spook in. But that's all speculation. Allegedly, all speculation, all theory. I am not suicidal in any way, shape, or form. But you've got that guy in there, which is arguably one of the worst writers, one of the worst guys that was given way too much work inside of DC. But despite all of that, James has shown a genuine love for the medium, for the comics, for these characters, for these stories. Is his ego and narcissism still going to get in the way? Are we going to get a one-to-one adaptation of like Kingdom Come or of any name your favorite Justice League or Superman or Batman or John Constantine story run? No. No. Because once again, ego and narcissism, right? Because that runs rampant throughout Hollywood. But at least you know it's a step in the right direction compared to what we are still dealing with at Marvel, a driving force behind what gets made and what doesn't inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe hates the comics. Kathleen Kennedy hates Star Wars. She hates Star Wars fans. So we know that one's toast. But it's one of those situations where there are signs for hope out there. There are signs of at least some stewards of these IPs and some stewards of these brands at least understand the mistakes that they made to some degree. Whether it be hiring James Gunn, who at least doesn't hate comics like the guys over at Marvel, does seem to have a genuine love for comics, or the prime example of Transformers guy, who is in charge of what will probably be argued as one of the best Transformers runs in history. I really do honestly believe it will be argued at that. In a decade, it will be argued as that. Who has shown not only an absolute love and reverence for the IP, but an absolute love and reverence for the fans. And that's one of them situations where I have hope, I have faith that that is the trend we will see going forward. Do I think that will be the trend across the board? No. I think some IPs, to a certain degree, are beyond saving in one aspect or another. I do believe a lot of IPs could at least be salvaged if you give them a break, if you put them on hiatus for a while. And after all of the people who control the IP and hate it are dead, or at least out of the industry with next to no influence, may they all live to be 100. Then you can dust it off, kind of like what you did with Transformers. You know, because the Transformers comics have been real hit or miss over the years, right? Dust it off. Go, hey, I heard you loved this as a kid. And I know you're a good writer. Here. Make people love it again. Do what you think's best. Not what we think. Not what the marketing department thinks. Not what the statisticians and the bean counters are telling us. Give me something the fans are going to love. Give me something to bring this IP back to life. It could happen. It could happen. Or, because of the renaissance that we currently have going on, all of our favorite IPs will just get replaced by old IPs. And we will be the generation, doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter when you were born, we will be the cultural generation that will have been alive to watch some of these IPs, some of these brands, some of these characters, some of these stories be at the absolute height of their popularity, all to watch ego, narcissism, pride, and the devil himself drag them right down into the pits of hell, into being dead franchises, into being unprofitable IPs. I know which way I'd like to see things go. I'd like to have my cake and eat it too. I'd like to have both. I want the new stuff, and I want our old stuff restored. But I would still argue it would be a decade before anybody could even give a good try at restoring any of the stuff we've lost, any of the stuff that's been damaged. But at the exact same time, we may be the last generation, we may be the last cultural generation to remember a time when Star Wars was successful. You know, Marvel's got so many characters that individual characters will always be successful in one form or another. And people will deal with rehashes and reboots and give it a few years and they'll cast a new Spider-Man and Sony will just go do Spider-Man movies on their own. And because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just falling to shambles and, you know, Spider-Man will go back on a shelf for a little while and they'll dust him off and they'll bring him back out and hopefully give us a good movie. But as far as like everybody and their mother, like we've got now kind of situation, I don't think it's salvageable. And I think Fantastic Four proved that. If Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars fail to make a profit, I mean, and even if they fail to make $1 billion worldwide, Marvel can be considered damaged beyond repair. If they can't get the normies back in, even by throwing the kitchen sink at it, kind of like what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine to a certain degree, then there is no hope for Kevin Feige Marvel. There isn't. There's zero hope for it. And as long as he is in charge of that studio, nothing will change. And as long as Ocha over there, nothing's ever going to change. That's just insane to think about. But we are. Rest in peace. We are the generation that is going to end up watching a lot of major cultural icons die. And I shouldn't even say die. They were murdered. They were murdered. Star Wars was murdered. Marvel was murdered. DC under Walter Hamada was murdered. Name your favorite. Magic the Gathering. You know, Lord of the Rings. Dungeons and Dragons. You know, certain aspects of Warhammer 40K. It wasn't like these things got cancer randomly and died. They were poisoned. They were intentionally poisoned. And the people that poisoned them will be held accountable, if not in this life, in the next. Because it was intentional. They intentionally wanted to allow their pride and their narcissism to ignore everything that made those brands successful, to rewrite it in their own image. Lucifer got cast to hell for his prideful ways. I hate to see what he's got in store for everybody down there. A big shout out to all of our subscribers and members out there. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already.